जी 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 जी।
तो आई वाज वर्किंग विद सम पॉटर्स और मैंने उनसे पूछा कि अगर उनके पास ये किताब है और उसको इस्तेमाल करते हैं तो दे एंड दीज आर पॉटर्स जो काफ़ी रिमोट एरियाज में रहते हैं, अटक के पास और नॉर्दर्न एरियाज वगैरह में, एंड दे से नहीं हम वो इस्तेमाल नहीं करते हैं। एंड जो ग्रेजुअली उनके उनके उस्ताद थे जो उन्होंने सिखाया, आहिस्ता आहिस्ता वो खत्म
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, एब्सोल्युटली, दैट्स ट्रेडिशन इज डाइंग आउट।
काम करते हैं जैसे वो रैंडम वे ऑफ डूइंग इट, ठीक है, एक ऑब्वियसली सिक्वेंशियल तो होगा ये तैयार करने का, बट ये जो स्पिरिट थी और जो इस किताब के थ्रू आती थी काम में और उनकी सोच में, वो तो इट्स बीन लॉस्ट टू अ ग्रेट एक्सटेंट।
ट्रू।
ये बताइए कि उनमें से कौन है, मगर आई ट्राई टू लोकेट अ बुक, मेरे का पुरानी कॉपी हो, कोई वर्क हो, कुछ भी ला दो, तो हम तो असला में मैं तो काम करते रहे पॉटर के साथ, किसी के पास नहीं, और तो somewhere it's been lost.
Yeah. And similarly, many other aspects of the tradition have been lost. Calligraphy, because of its close association with literacy and because of its primary importance. नहीं, जब भी चीज़ सिमटनी शुरू होती है ना, जब ट्रेडिशन होती है, वो सेंटर से निकलती है और फैलती है और सारे शोबों को वो ले लेती है, फिर वो सिमटनी शुरू होती है तो फिर वो कोनों से सिमटती है और फिर सेंटर से आखिर में गायब होती है। कैलीग्राफी बीइंग मोस्ट सेंट्रल टू इस्लाम, बीइंग द प्राइमरी व्हीकल ऑफ द टेक्स्ट, उसमें ये सारी चीज़ें अभी भी बाकी हैं, ये सारी मानवियत बाकी है। खुर्शीद आलम गौहर रकम साहब की किताब आपके पास है, और तो खताती में ये चीज़ अभी भी है, बट दिस इज़ व्हाट हैपन्स व्हेन ट्रेडिशन इज़ लॉस्ट। एब्सोल्युटली।
वो काम करते हैं इन अ मोर ऑर्गेनाइज्ड स्पेस, जो खतात है इंटेलेक्चुअल ट्रेडिशन ही उनके पास है, और ये जो कुम्हार हैं वो समहाउ उनका जो कनेक्शन है, लार्जर कनेक्शन अपने उस्ताद से और नीचे शागिर्द से, वो बहुत लूज हो गया।
I would wager कि although they might not have these texts, but I'm sure there are certain kumhars in the Punjab who must have heard वारिस शाह's कलाम, सोनी माहिवाल, right? वो तो गाया जाता है, रेडियो पे हर जगह बज रहा है, तो उसमें तो सारी सिंबलिज्म पोट्री की उसमें मौजूद है। सोनी गड़े नू आख दी अज मैनू यार नू मिला घड़िया। Soni is the soul, she longs to be with her beloved. She says कि या घड़े से कहती है कि आज मुझे यार से मिला दो, तो घड़ा कहता है मैं तैयार नहीं हुआ हुआ, मैं पक्का, मैं कच्चा गड़ा हूँ। फिर एंड में क्या कहता है घड़ा? इश्क की अग विच मैं सड़िया, I have burnt in the fire of love, now I can carry you across the river. सही, तो what is, हाँ सही बात है, वो तो आगे की बात है ना, उस पर हम नहीं जा रहे, but what is the symbolism? Earth is man. The basic primary symbolism, Jabir bin Hayyan, Galen, go back as far as you like. Earth is the physical. When it meets water, which is emotional, the water sign, नहीं कहते जी you are Cancer with your moon in Pisces, so you must be very emotional. We are all familiar with these ideas. They are still with us. So water is emotion. So when water meets earth, then you can shape. गीली मिट्टी से इंसान को बनाया ना, वरना तो फिर वो मिट्टी है ना, बेकार पड़ी हुई है। और फिर उसे हवा लगती है, एयर इज इंटेलेक्ट, द इंटेलेक्चुअल साइंस, जेमिनाई एंड सो ऑन, सपोज्ड टू डू वेल इन एग्जाम्स, सो वी है। सो एंड देन फायर, स्पिरिट, your spirit, your spirituality has to, you have to go through suffering. So a lot of the symbolism is still available, and I'm sure if someone is connected and to the source, because where did these things spring from? Ultimately they sprang from spirituality. So if someone is still connected to Sufism, some craftsmen, I would wager that they are still largely aware of the symbolism of what they do, and they do it mindfully. But with time, as we know, that is no longer the case. It's no longer the Islam of the public. Even with a lot of the craftsmen I met in Multan, their grandfathers used to be Sufis, their fathers used to be Sufis, but now there are these modern reformist trends which have penetrated everywhere.
How it has been retailed, various traditions, various craft traditions, the documentation.
Some people have tried it, like Renata Hollod has tried it in the case of architecture. How did they convey these forms and to each other. But meaning is necessarily an internal thing. For us, I'll give you an analogy. Even today, if you go to a Sufi sheikh, he'll tell you that namaz is Adam, Alif, ruku mein jao to dal, niche wala wo wala meem hota na, the prostration is Adam. An internal thing which people who are doing it are aware of. Eventually it gets lost. Now many people will not know this Adam thing. Someone coming in from the outside will say, oh, where is the text shows that this was what Rasulullah said. It was not a very textual society. And again, there's a modernist bias there. You're already assuming that there has to be some kind of horizontal thing, some sort of document which comes in. And even if that document existed, even if it was from 36 Hijri, they will say, oh, why is it from 36 Hijri? And even if it was from the Prophet's time, they would say, oh, where did this come from? Did this come from the Greeks, or the Sasanians, or the Achaemenids, or the Yemenis, or the Nabateans? So you just can't win with that. What I'm saying is epistemology is very important. Most people don't read philosophy. You have to read philosophy because you understand if you ask a particular kind of question, you're only going to get a particular kind of answer. It depends on the question you ask. So with this view, it's a self-reinforcing thing. You're only going to get if you come up with a modernist inquiry into these questions, you're only going to come up with a modernist answer. Fundamentally, it's about belief. Can there be a vertical? So I think fundamentally the modernist mind is not convinced of that. And we are still colored with that. We do not believe there can be a vertical. We're still looking for where in time and place. Well, it was in Alam Arwah. तय हो गया था सब कुछ. किस तरह होगा?
But I think the trouble is also being able to talk back to that tradition.
But why talk back? That's also a postmodern or a modern concern, isn't it? It's not a traditional concern.
But that distance that gap, is there?
Yeah, the gap is there. So what is to be done about it? That's a whole other series of questions. Yeah. Do we attempt to bridge that gap? Do we just go on forward? How do we bridge that gap? Is that gap bridgeable? What sort of hybrid? Do we make a hybrid culture? What sort of hybrid shall we make? That opens up a whole other box.
I think we are hybrid culture. We cannot deny that. Over time, different influences have come.
That is true.
The real practice of any of the crafts, if we are talking about crafts or on practice, we have become a great degree of it.
True, but we still have the traditional man. Yes. And we still have the ultra-modern man. We have all of these types within us. So all these possibilities still exist. All these human possibilities still exist. We have all these human possibilities available to us today, even today. We don't actually, just because generally it's a hybrid does not mean we automatically, all of us have to be a hybrid. All of these possibilities are there. And that's a matter of individual choice, which we...
It can exist because obviously we live in a certain environment that has not taken it completely away from us. We are consciously or subconsciously being influenced by it around us. That is very true. But the fact is that at the end of the day, the life we lead is very much a product of this hybrid environment that we are born into or whatever.
Again, I would argue that there is a modernist bias there. I would feel that traditional life is still possible. The traditional world, you can still live in that reality. You can still choose to live in it.
What do you mean by traditional life?
The sacred reality. You can live in sacred time, or you can live in normal, and you can live in physical time. You can live in mechanical time, or you can live in spiritual time. Ji. Of course, counter arguments can always be made. Ji, this one.
Modernism destroying traditional system of the world.
Yeah.
On the other hand, modernism is also destroying textualism. Modernism is also making you look beyond what's already there.
Yeah.
So in fact, it's reviving the oral side of the culture.
Textualism, for those who might not be familiar, the idea is from Marshall McLuhan and Benjamin and these theorists. Yeah, the new tribes and so on. I would argue again that it's not tradition. I mean, this is a complex question, but two things I would say to you. One is, as the question of quantum physics, that it gets interpreted within its own, within the worldview of the time, blurred by that. Yeah. Although with the movement you see a return to outside the individual, back to the commune and back to the community, some of that. But first of all, whatever new movement comes will again be interpreted within the overall worldview, which is already there, which is not the same. And secondly, I think there's a fundamental disjunct between modernity and tradition which cannot be made up. I believe that. You can argue against it, and every argument is equally valid. I could not convince you and you could not convince me. But I believe there is a fundamental disjunct. Their methodology of truth, their definition of reality, I think there is a great disjunct, and never the twain shall meet. So I think there is a big disjunct there. To give you a practical example, when Sir Syed and the progressives came in, the progressive Islam as a counter to what had happened, as an attempt to bridge, right, the tradition with modernity. Sir Syed says, okay, so this new knowledge is true and the old knowledge is also true, so what do we do? So therefore, nature is being the work of God, cannot be in conflict with the Quran, which is the word of God. The word and the work cannot be in conflict of the same author. So therefore, everything which science says is true, everything which the Quran says is also true. How do we balance the two? Adam did not exist. There is no person called Adam. Hazrat Adam alayhi salam ka wujud nahi hai for Sir Syed. He is what do you call it? He is a metaphor for mankind. कि आदम जो हैं जल्दबाज थे, तो इसका मतलब ये है कि इंसान की खसलत में एक इंसान जल्दबाज होता है. Flash forward 100 years after Sir Syed, what are the people who are attempting to bridge the gap between modernity and the tradition doing? The Ghamid time, they say, Surah Fil, where the birds come and they kill the elephants. So the Tayr and Ababil. So it wasn't the Ababil. The Tayran was the virus, which was virus, bacteria flies through the air, that killed the elephants, and the birds were only scavengers who came and ate up the elephants, so the plague or whatever it was would not spread to Mecca. So where will you end? You won't have tradition. You have to decide on a primary methodology. You have to draw the line. So, of course, most people don't draw the line. They choose to just go on with their lives and they try to fit things as they come along. But I would argue, although this is convenient, but therefore the confusion. Therefore these problems which are not going away, which are refusing to go away. We have to somehow go back to these original problems. How do we, again the same problem, how do and where do we draw the line, and how do we reconcile tradition with modernity? So I believe unless we solve this and we take a stand, this confusion will persist. So the people who are comfortable are people like Pervez Hoodboy, who have decided totally against tradition, or people like the Usmanis who've decided completely against modernity. They're the people who are the happiest. So I believe it's not really possible. Look at what happened with the church. No? The Christian West has already gone through this. So you can see what's with Abdu Shahdan, if you're familiar. It's not possible. Tilhad Shahdan, are you familiar with him? He's a famous. If you look at the church, how the church had to accommodate modernity. The Catholic Church took this way, route, right? They said, okay, हम क्या करेंगे जब नया कुछ और बताएगा हमें, because they had been embarrassed by science. The world is round, oh my God, and the earth goes round the sun. No way. So when they were embarrassed, so they said, okay, our modus operandi, we will survive by adapting. We will say, we will not reject new knowledge, but we will reinterpret traditional knowledge. So that's how they dealt with it. So if we choose to go down this path, so we can see what is before us. So Tilhadu Shabda is as far removed from the Ebionites or the early Christians as you can get. It's a completely different worldview actually.